And now it's time for Power of Prophecy with your host, former professor at the University of Texas at Austin, career United States Air Force officer, and best-selling author, Texe Mars.
Hello, friends. This is Texe Mars, and welcome to another edition of Power of Prophecy. You know, if there's one prophetic truth you better believe that's in the Bible, it says that we have to watch out for, be on the lookout for false prophets, false religion in the last days. And I'll tell you, they're growing up like mushrooms after a big rain in the forest. The Mormons, for example, they claim to have 12 to 15 million people that are now members of the so-called Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Actually, they're the Church of Moroni, or Moroni, however you want to pronounce their angel's name. The non-existent angel that supposedly gave these golden tablets that, of course, are also non-existent to the founder, Joseph Smith, who was a Freemason, who created a church basically made up of occultic and Masonic beliefs. How would I know that? Because I've studied Freemasonry, the Masonic beliefs, more than the Masons have in my lifetime. And, of course, for decades now, I have studied, researched, investigated both the ancient mystery religions and the occult world. And that's exactly what the Mormon Church is. I see witchcraft. I see Satanism. I see Masonry and the ancient mystery religions in every aspect, practically, of Mormonism. Then we have Jehovah's Witnesses that claims that Jesus is not God, but actually is the Archangel Michael with another name. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they have about 1 million people they've deceived at their so-called kingdom halls. And by the way, you may notice when you pass these Jehovah's Witnesses kingdoms halls, notice they have no windows on them. Isn't that an interesting thing? Don't get caught up in the cults, my dear friends. There's no escape. And I think there's a subtle message there of the JWs. But today I want to talk about, and next week, we're going to talk about a religion that has been it built itself. Of course, it's known for so many lies and thuggery that it's hard to believe much of what they say. But this religion says that it's the fastest growing religion on earth. They claim they have some 8 million or more believers. In fact, let me read it to you here. The Church of Scientology itself, that's what we're going to be talking about, Scientology, claims to have over 8 million members. They say they have 2,318 churches and missions. Oh, they have missionaries in 107 countries, and they claim 500,000 new converts per year. Now, what denomination of Christianity can say the same thing? And yet, I'm going to be quoting respected individuals, researchers and so forth, who say this is nothing but a global racket. And it is a vicious racket, I might want to say, because when you go out to unmask or expose Scientology, they don't sit on their duff. They come after you. It's like attracting devils. These people are, I believe, devils, and they're going to come after you because you've exposed them. Very demonic in my understanding. But we're going to talk about the belief systems of Scientology. We're going to talk about their, what I would call their, and have been called, their concentration camps. Friends, you join the Church of Scientology, you may want to leave, but you're not going to be able to leave. It's like that song Some years ago I heard, and I refused to listen to it again because I know it's satanic, called Hotel California by a group called the Eagles. You can check in, but you just can't check out. You can't leave. Now, I know there are some who have been into Scientology and did leave, so it is an exaggeration, but there's some who ended up dead. And we'll tell you about those also. We're going to talk about the lies and deceptions behind Scientology. We're going to talk about the founder of Scientology, who I believe was nothing but more than a huckster, a liar, a fabricator, a sicko, and a Satanist. That's saying a lot. But I didn't blench at all, did I, when I said it? I said it flat out to you. We're not here at Power of Prophecy Ministries to shade the truth, to make anybody happy. I am not here to make anybody happy. Sometimes I don't even make myself happy by telling the truth, because all kind of trouble comes out of the woodwork. The worms come out of the woodwork. The serpents come out of their holes and attack you when you tell the truth. But so what? That's our job in life. Ward off the attack. I love that verse in the Bible where Jesus said that the gates of hell shall not prevail against you. I used to just read that and I would say, see there, isn't that wonderful? That Satan, when he attacks you, he will not prevail. But I had misread it. Many years ago, I read it again, and I said, whoa, God showed something to me. I thought it was that the Christian was to be passive, but that he could not be conquered by Satan. It's just the opposite. The Christian goes on the attack and is engaged in a state of constant, all-out war with the devil, and the devil cannot defend himself. The gates of hell, it's the devil back behind his gates. He's back behind his fort. He is trembling. He is afraid. He is nervous. Because it's Christians out there that are attacking him. They're at his gate. And they're ready to slam it down. And it will not prevail, because Jesus says, whatever I have bound and loosed in heaven, you may do so also in earth. Friends, let me tell you something. You have power over the monsters of darkness. This is what most Christians don't understand, that a true Christian has the power to wage war and win against Satan and his minions, of which the Church of Scientology is a big part today. Now, some people say, well, Texe, I'm not a Scientologist. I'm not interested in that. I'm not going to get involved in that. I think it's a stupid, silly religion. It does not affect me in the least. Watch out. I have some news for you. My opinion is, my belief is that these people now have official government sanction. They've been given tax-exempt status as an official church. They're operating as a church. There are some who even believe that when Scientology, which fought the government for a long time, when they were finally approved as a religion and given an official tax-exempt status, 501c3 of the tax code, that Scientology, this is the belief now, the opinion of some, they claim they have the evidence, that the Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, required that Scientology allow CIA and FBI operatives to be on its board of directors, and it's part of its management. Now, I don't know that to be true, but I can understand how that could happen. The Illuminati, the elite that control this world, want to use Scientology as a tool to help them to conquer the minds of men and women everywhere. And Scientology operates in most countries around the world today. And as I said, they claim 8 million members. They're pretty big liars, but we know they have millions. It's like secret agents operating in all of the capitals of earth practically. And if they have indeed, if they're now colluding with the secret societies of the Illuminati, with the intelligence agencies, there's no limit to the damage that these people can do, if that is so. Again, I don't have knockdown proof of that, but there are some indications of it from some of the sources that I've read. Now, what we do know is bad enough, what I can tell you that is fact. And we'll try to stick with that today as much as we can. Were it speculation, I'll tell you just like I did. But it's not idle speculation. But when you see such an evil organization, it's easy to believe even worse things about them. But you don't need to talk about the worst things because it's already bad enough. Now, there are many people attracted to Scientology because of the name itself. Many, many years ago when Scientology was first founded, I was a young man. And I was in a bookstore and I saw a book about Scientology. It was called Scientology. I believe it was the subtitle, The Science of Dianetics. I wanted to know what that meant. It was a pretty interesting name, by the way, the Church of Scientology, because everybody wants to believe they're scientific, factual, empirical. So we have a combination of theology and scientism or science. Scientology. That's attractive. No one wants to be an uncouth Christian, do they? Everybody wants to put down Christianity as that old fuddy-duddy ancient religion. They want something updated and new with the times. A 21st century religion. Scientology, it sounds so glamorous. And it brings you the science of Dianetics. Boy, that sounds really updated and trendy. If, of course, you ask Scientology what the word Dianetics means, they say it has something to do with how the soul affects the minds of men. And they offer to clear you of those negative impacts that spirits have in your soul. Dianetics. But since I knew about L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Dianetics and Scientology, since I know that he was connected with Jack Parsons, one of the founders of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and one of the leaders of one of the most odious churches of Satan in the world, and how L. Ron Hubbard not only lived in the home of Jack Parsons for a while to study there, a home in which Satanists came and conducted satanic worship, and everything from incest to sexual rituals and evil black magic was accomplished in the home of Jack Parsons, where L. Ron Hubbard reportedly lived for a while. But Parsons himself, this head high priest of a church of Satan, the OTO in California, also wrote to Aleister Crowley, the man who prided himself as being called the wickedest man on earth. The Beast 666, he called himself. Aleister Crowley of Great Britain. And Parsons wrote to him and said that L. Ron Hubbard basically is one of us now. L. Ron Hubbard is with us. And L. Ron Hubbard, no doubt, studied and learned many things from the Church of Satan, things which I believe he has incorporated in one way or another, however indirect, into his Church of Scientology. Now, here we have then a man whose foundation was Satanism and whose life has been built on a fiction of lies, being the founder of a so-called church, which seems to have no God, but makes every man who follows its dictates into a supposed God, and has 8 million members and 2,318 churches, and has movie stars. You see, they even have celebrity centers. They go out and recruit movie stars, and they enjoy it because it gives them so much publicity. Just recently, Tom Cruise, the well-known handsome movie star, delighted audiences with his new movie, War of the Worlds, the old Orson Welles classic. But they say that some of the script of War on the Worlds was modified to bring in some of the Scientology concepts. So it became, in a sense, a recruitment for Scientology. Maybe it was because of what Tom Cruise wanted. He is an avid Scientologist. There's also people like Chick Corea, the music man. There's Priscilla Presley, the widow of Elvis Presley, and now an actress in her own right. There, of course, is Kirstie Alley, and we can go on, John Travolta. We can go on and on, who, by the way, did a movie based on Scientology's New Age beliefs. So when you have John Travolta and Tom Cruise and Kirstie Alley and all the others, you get quite a legion of Hollywood types promoting Scientology. Now, Scientology has its enemies. Every Christian should be an enemy of Scientology. But there are others. Since Hubbard claimed that his system would make psychotherapy and psychiatry obsolete and would show them to be outmoded, wicked concepts of worthless nature. And since Scientology also attacks the pharmaceutical companies because they want to sell you, Scientology, I believe, wants to sell you their own methods. And by the way, they charge you. You have to pay for their auditing services, they call it, to clear your mind, and so that you can eventually become an operating level 8, an OT 8, operating thetan at the 8th level, and then you become a God person at that level, transcending time and space and matter and so forth. If Scientology and its methods, if you pay them and they work, then why should you get drugs? If you're depressed, you don't need Zoloft or some other drug. You just need Scientology's auditing methods. Pay them, not the pharmaceutical companies. Obviously, they would then be the enemy of the drug companies, the huge scientific pharmaceutical companies. And they are the enemy of these companies, and each attacks each other in, various ways. It would seem then that Scientology is not part of the Illuminati network of systems, because if it attacks some of the things that the Illuminati have gained by, such as the pharmaceuticals, the drugs, and so forth, how could the Illuminati bring in Scientology into its folds when Scientology is attacking the big drug companies that are owned by a lot of the Illuminati billionaires? It all has to do, my dear friends, with something called Hegelian dialectics. The dialectic, the conflict of opposites. I believe this is an artificial separation. And so, to escape the pharmaceutical companies, you run right into the arms of the devil's Scientology. And if you escape Scientology, you go right into the pharmaceuticals. Now, that's why today I'm very leery. I know some drugs may do you some good, antibiotics and others, but watch out. I'm very leery of many of the claims of the pharmaceutical drug companies. I believe as many people die using different drugs for high blood pressure and such as are helped by them every year. And yet I know there's some, maybe not many, helpful pharmaceutical drugs. At the same time, many people claim to be helped by Scientology. But we're going to go into their beliefs and let you see for yourself. But what I want you to understand is this is only one of Satan's instruments in these last days, but it is a big one. And there is a great danger that Scientology could join forces with Mormonism and with the New Age movement and with some others. And even I can see very easily how some of the great so-called Christian movements of today, the Rick Warren's purpose-driven lives, and the Joel Osteen's Your Best Life Now movement, could in the near future coalesce together with Scientology, because many of the beliefs are the same. I want to repeat that. Many of the beliefs of Scientology and the Joel Osteens and Rick Warrens of so-called modern-day Christianity are the same. Now, there's dramatic differences as well, no doubt about that. But because the Christianity of the Osteens and the Warrens today is a watered-down imitation Kool-Aid type of Christianity, that watered-down lukewarm Christianity can become easily an ingredient for a takeover by a satanic religion such as Scientology, and Scientology could end up being the very fountain of all of apostate Christianity. And it makes sense then when we read in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 that the rapture of the church of God's people will not occur, will not happen. Paul warned this now, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, until first there come a great falling away. And then that man of sin, the son of perdition, the one they call the man of lawlessness, is revealed. Only then, Paul said, will Jesus come to gather us up. So we see a great falling away must occur. The son of perdition, the Antichrist, must come forth. That great falling away could well be a coalescing, a uniting of all false religions, Catholicism, false or backslid Protestantism, exemplified by the Word of Faith movement of Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland, Paul Crouch. And of course, we have the same Word of Faith movement, basically, the watered-down Christianity of the Rick Warrens, sort of the rock and roll Christianity. Jimi Hendrix voodoo of Rick Warren, and mix that with Joel Osteen's imitation Kool-Aid Christianity, where there is a Jesus, all right, but it is another Jesus and another gospel. You will find in today's program and next week's that Scientology says there is no conflict between their religion and Christianity. You can be a Christian and a Scientologist at the same time, but that is a lie. But isn't it true that Rick Warren and Joel Osteen, who are the two biggest movers now in Christianity, say that it doesn't matter what religion you are? They're not going to get into condemning other religions. Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, Wicca, or witchcraft. They're not going to get into that. We're not into that. We just want everybody to have their best life now, or a purpose-driven life. But if you talk to Warren, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not going to force my beliefs on anybody. Why, whatever they believe, okay. I'm not going to say they're going to hell. I'm not going to say they're wrong. That's not my prerogative. That's up to God. But then, who is God? It all gets down to that question, my friends. Who is God? I remember a debate I had with a New Age teacher. She was a New Age psychic. She was a talk show host. We had a debate together. And she kept talking about that she believed that everybody had a God within. Well, being of a curious mind, sort of a National Enquirer type inquisitiveness, I wanted to know the name of her God within. So I asked her, I said, you keep talking about a God within. Do you have a God within? She said, yes, I do. I said, what's his or her name? She said, name? I said, yes, the name of your God within. Well, she began to sputter. She had been very self-confident up to that point. In fact, some might say she was winning points against me. I mean, she had it down pat, her New Age slogans and all. I mean, she was good. She was a good debater. But here she began to falter. And she says, the God within, the name. I said, yes, ma'am. What is the name? Every God has a name. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the name of, I've never thought of that, she said. I don't know what the name of the God I have within. I said, well, I do. I know the name. She said, you do? I said, yes. His name is Lucifer. And man, she looked at me and her eyes got big, and you know what? She knew right then at that moment, that's it. I think she was in a denial state up until that moment. She realized exactly who it was. I had identified the God within, the God of no name. Now, friends, when somebody says, as Scientology does, you can be a Buddhist, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew, you can be a Christian, it doesn't matter. You can still be a Scientologist. Really? Sounds like Freemasonry. Around the altar of Freemasonry, all religions can worship. Oh, yes, absolutely. Friends, the devil doesn't mind by what name you address him. I remember a hilarious commercial some years ago. You may remember it. It was some guy, he was sort of a loser type character. And somebody asked him his name, and he said, well, you can call me Bill, or you can call me Jack, or you can call me Fred, or you can call me... That's what the devil's like. You can call me anything. Just don't address me as Jesus. But wait, you can even call me Jesus. Just make sure it's not the Jesus of that Bible. That's the one thing the devil will not accept. If you identify the true Jesus, if you say and declare, I will worship only the Jesus that's revealed in the Word of God, then suddenly the devil will get very nervous, very excitable, very irritated. And if you insist on such a thing, well, he'll just get out of your life and leave you alone. He don't want you. But if you can believe in a Jesus, somebody wrote me a letter yesterday and said, Dear Texe, I've been talking to a woman friend of mine, and she says all of the letters of Paul are all fakes. And that many things that are said about Jesus aren't true in the Gospels either. But she says she's a Christian. I'm beginning to wonder now, do you think she's right about what she says? Here we have another Jesus, another gospel. One woman believes it, and she's going out proselytizing and getting another believer, another follower. And this woman said, I'm a Christian, but I'm beginning to doubt now. Oh, yeah? You're a Christian? I doubt also. I'm a doubter. I doubt if you're a Christian. This is Texe Mars. You're listening to Power of Prophecy. We're talking about Scientology. Could it be the world's most dangerous religion? Could it be dangerous to your health? This is Texe Mars. We'll be right back after this brief message. New Age cults and religions. Here is the newest information revealed and explained. It's a book that I wrote some years ago, but I recently reread it, and I'll tell you, it's still accurate in every respect. New Age cults and religions. We want to offer you this book for just $15. let's see, I think it's over 350 pages, over 350 pages in length. And it covers over 100 major New Age cults and religions. Urantia, the Rosicrucians, the Druids, Transcendental Meditation, or Meditation, I should say, the Lucis Trust, Theosophy, Estera, Unity Church, Scientology, UFO societies. Oh, yes, UFOs. There's Mormonism. There's the Church of Wicca or witchcraft. Ekankar, which believes in soul travel or astral travel. There's the Enochians, the Church of Yahweh, the Church Universal and Triumphant. Of course, there's the Jehovah's Witnesses, and many more that are covered in my book, New Age Cults and Religions. By the way, you'll see valuable things in this book. You'll see tables and charts that chart the differences between New Ageism or the New Age religions and true Christianity. And then we have a section called the Unholy Bibles of the New Age. There are false Bibles out there. The Book of Urantia, the Jesus Letters, and others that are false Bibles. This book will tell you about the danger of cults, the lure of cults, how to reach out to New Age believers. It'll talk about the growth of a new world religion, bringing all of these false New Age cults together. And there's so much more. A Course in Miracles. There's a false Bible for you. And yet, hundreds of thousands are involved in A Course in Miracles. It sounds almost Christian, doesn't it? The Baha'i. Even the Jews have allowed the Baha'i to build a great temple in Israel. Isn't that fascinating? There's Buddhism, of course, and we talk about that. The Church of Divine Man, the Dalai Lama. There's the Forum, the Findhorn Foundation, the Fellowship of Isis, a witchcraft or pagan church. There's the Hare Krishna. As you know, some of the Beatles musical group were involved with the Hare Krishnas. There's Hinduism. Yes, the Hindus. You'll learn about that. There's LifeSpring, the Mayan Order, Montessori schools. A lot of people write me questions on the Montessori. We talk about that. Native American Indian religion. Can it be consolidated with Christianity? Read about the Native American Indian religion in this book. And it goes on and on. By the way, it also talks about a New Age group called Paralandra community. Paralandra. And it explains how this New Age occultic group has only one set of scriptures, the writings of C.S. Lewis. I think you'll find that of interesting too. There's Ramtha, the teachings of a woman spirit channeler named J.Z. Knight, who says a 35,000-year-old man or spirit speaks through her voice. You'll want to know what she has to say. And there's churches like St. John the Divine Cathedral in New York City or St. James Church at Piccadilly in London, and you'll find about how New Age and occultic and satanic they are. There's the Sufi Muslims. There's the New Age church inside the United Nations led by a guru named Sri Chinmoy. How many people knew about that? Did you know that the diplomats of the United Nations have their own chapel? And they have services in that chapel that are led by a New Age Hindu guru named Sri Chinmoy. This book talks about that as well. So I can go on and on. Windstar Foundation, that was founded by the late singer John Denver, and so on. But one of the sections is Scientology, or Dianetics, as it's called. We'll tell you about Dianetics. I think I just revealed it there. Means when we return in a moment on our regular program. But you'll want this book. Over 350 pages, the most thorough book on 100 of the most dangerous cults and religions, false religions in the world today. And they may be knocking on your door tomorrow, my friends, wanting you to join up. You might want to know what it's all about. through getting the book by Texe entitled New Age Cults and Religions. $15, add $2 shipping and handling. Order the book, New Age Cults and Religions, by phoning us toll-free, 1-800-234-9673, 1-800-234-9673. And like all of our purchases, when you purchase something, we put you on our mailing list and you receive our newsletter, Power of Prophecy, every month. If you're already receiving it, well, we just extend your subscription, and you'll keep getting it for quite a period of time. How to get this book? Call us toll-free, 1-800-234-9673, or you can write to us, send us $17, and that'll be postpaid. You'll get the book back. Just say, hey, Tex, send me the book, New Age Cults and Religions, and we'll get it right winging to you right away. We got plenty of copies. It's all been printed up. We got them stacked on shelves, ready to mail out. New Age Cults and Religions. Our address here is 1708, that's Power of Prophecy, 1708 Patterson, Patterson Road, Austin, Texas, 78733. And now let's return to our program. We're talking about Scientology. You know, it's interesting that L. Ron Hubbard, the founder, began this church with an article in a science fiction magazine. That's right. How many churches begin as an article written in a science fiction magazine? Well, they were in L. Ron Hubbard's case. And now it claims to be the fastest growing church in the world today. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the beliefs of this church. I think you really won't believe what it does teach. Now, when you join Scientology, you enter into a field that I believe is nothing but science fiction, created myth, scriptures written. They admit themselves that their scriptures are all come from one source, and that is the fertile imagination. They don't call it that, but it's the writings of L. Ron Hubbard. He's their God Messiah, I suppose, because he's written their scriptures. He's the only one that could change the scriptures. Of course, he's dead now. I don't believe he's going to be changing much of anything at this point, unless the devil allows him to do a few things of interest down in hell. In any case, here is sort of the main tale of Scientology. Now, they don't tell you this at first. At first, it's just a wonderful religion that will change your life forever and cause you to become happy and prosperous and positive thinking. Oh, just a wonderful person, and give you power to get things in life and to get a nice family. And it's like a dream come true. No wonder all the movie stars want it. Wow. Be a Scientologist. It's such mercy. Everybody would want to be a Scientologist if you believe all the promises of their literature. And I've written off and got their literature and sounded good to me. And all these big name movie stars are involved in it. Look how successful they are. A lot of doctors and lawyers are Scientologists. And they learn things. Now you have to pay to learn. And they say for $200,000 to $400,000, you can eventually become an operating thetan, or Thetan, thetan, or thetan, at level 8. That's the highest. You've transcended everything. Then you're like a god if you get to OT8, operating thetan, level 8. Woo! But at operating level 3, you've already got enough secret knowledge, evidently, from what I understand, from everything I've read from former Scientologists, to know the main plot. Suddenly, you find out that there's more to Scientology than you've been told at the lower levels. You paid a lot of money to be audited with their e-meter machines, and you're deep into it. And then they tell you the story, something you have to know for your life's sake. And it's something of gravity and importance, and here it is. You see, It's the tale of the great god Xenu, Xenu. Now, this is right out of Scientology, friends. 75 million years ago, it seems, there was an alien galactic ruler named Xenu, who was in charge of 76 planets. In our sector of the galaxy, one of those was planet Earth, whose name at that time was Texe. Texe. All of the planets that this galactic ruler, this alien named Xenu ruled, all of them were overpopulated. In fact, they were overpopulated by, on average, some 178 billion people. Now, there were a lot of problems. When you have too many people, you have all kinds of social problems. And Xenu, the galactic alien ruler, decided he would have to rid his sector of the galaxy of this overpopulation problem, so he developed a plan. He was very clever, Scientology says of Xenu. And what he did was to send out tax audit demands. They had sort of an IRS in those days. And he sent out tax audit demands to all these billions of overpopulated people. As each one entered the audit centers for their income tax inspections, they were seized by the agents of Xenu. They were held down and injected with a mixture of alcohol and glycol and frozen. Then, all 13.5 trillion of these frozen people from the 76 planets, including Texe, or Earth, were put into spaceships that looked exactly like DC-8 airplanes, except that the spaceships had rocket engines instead of propellers. And Xenu's entire fleet of DC-8-like spaceships then went on over to planet Earth, where the frozen people, all 13.5 trillion of them, were dumped in and around volcanoes on planet Earth, in the Canary Islands and the Hawaiian Islands. I don't know why they didn't go to other planets and use their volcanoes, but they chose Earth around the Hawaiian Islands. These frozen people were just dumped from the airplanes and went down into the volcanoes. Now, after Xenu's Air Force or Space Force had finished dumping the bodies into the volcanoes, hydrogen bombs were dropped into the volcanoes, and the frozen space aliens were destroyed. However, Xenu's plan also involved setting up electronic traps in Texe, or Earth's atmosphere, which were designed to trap the souls or spirits of the dead space aliens. See, when their bodies were destroyed, these 13.5 trillion, their spirits or souls, you might say, were released. Their spirits were released. 13.5 trillion spirits were blown around on the nuclear winds, and the electronic traps were designed to capture all of these souls or spirits and some type of an electronic sticky fly paper-like substance. The spirits were then taken to huge multiplex cinemas that Xenu had previously instructed his forces to build on Texe. And all day long, for days on end, they watched special 3D movies, to implant into these spirits another reality. During these films, many false pictures were implanted in these spirits, which resulted in the spirits believing in all the things that control mankind on earth today. Xenu taught them evil things like religions like Christianity, Buddhism, all that. He taught them all about murder, cruelty, robbery. All of these were implanted as false realities, so that to this very minute, these spirits, these 13.5 trillion spirits, have these horrible ideas that were implanted in them. Now, this is the problem with Earth people today. There's 6 million inhabitants of Earth. And each one has several thousand of these spirits that have attached themselves to them. You and I, Scientology says, have these spirits. And they have these false realities implanted. They're evil spirits, in fact, from outer space. And they go inhabit human beings, so that every human being has thousands of these spirits. And these evil spirits are what implant into your brain evil thoughts that make you think evil thoughts, do evil things. These things are called engrams. For one thing, implants, engrams. Now, the way to a true love of life, to a great, wonderful existence, is for you to find out about who all these spirits are, their names, and how to get rid of them. And Scientology offers you, as you progress up to OT8 level, you're going to find out the names. You're going to find out, I suppose, the names. You're going to find out about the personalities, and you're going to confront all of these thousands of spirits that have attached themselves to your mind. And once you know of the evil thoughts, you're going to force them, by your own admission, Scientology's practitioner or whatever is going to help you to discover these bad thoughts. And you're going to, by knowing them, then you'll put them into an analytical part of your brain rather than a reactive part of your brain. And the analytical part of the brain then will be able to act on and overcome the bad thoughts. But Scientology, once you find out the bad thoughts the spirit has put into you, the spirit will leave you. It has no more power over you. So in a sense, they're casting out all these spirits. And you end up with a clear analytical mind rather than just a reactive mind that's full of the thoughts that all these spirits have given you. Woo! That's very interesting. It's been calculated by one group that admittedly is anti-Scientology that if there's 13.5 million of these spirits with their bad thoughts that are attaching themselves to persons here on earth, that would mean around 2,209 of them for every person on earth. 2,209. Now, Scientology says for a mere $360,000 over a lifetime, they can help you to become a OT8 godlike person and get rid of these 2,209 average number there. You know, you may have more or less than other people. Everybody is different, they say. And they may need more money or less money from you, depending on how many spirits have attached themselves to your brain. But one group that I was reading on the internet, sometimes you read this stuff and it gets so comical and humorous you just have to laugh, as bad as evil as it is. But they've worked it out mathematically, and they say if every human being on earth has 2,209 of these body thetans, and Scientology charges you an average of $360,000 to get rid of the thetans, that would mean about $163 to clear or get rid of each of them. Now, that's a bargain if there ever was one. If you're possessed, they don't call it possessed, but if they've been attracted to you, 2,209 of these beings, and you only have to pay $163 for each one to get rid of them, not a bad deal. However, I guess L. Ron Hubbard never said the overall cost of the planet would be cheap. Because here's the planetary cost equation. 13.5 trillion spirits times $163 each to clear would equal $2.2 quadrillion. That's 2 quadrillion. And I don't even know the next number. 2,205,000,000,000,000,000,000. Write that down, friends, and you'll have $2.2 quadrillion. Now, the U.S. federal budget, as excessive and bloated it is probably only a fraction of the amount of money that people are going to have to pay to get rid of these spirits that are all over the earth. But Hubbard says this is a mission and a goal for us. First, get rid of the spirits that have attached themselves to you. He doesn't call them spirits, they're these body thetans. And after you've got rid of yours and worked up to OT8, then you can get rid of them throughout all the planet. Help everybody to become a Scientologist. If everybody becomes a Scientologist, then Scientology will have earned $2.2 quadrillion. No wonder they want people to go out there and recruit. This is a lot of money. And that's why Reader's Digest, Time Magazine, and others have done feature stories on this Scientology cult and call it a global racket, not a religion. But, of course, Scientology disagrees. We are a religion, they say. Absolutely. Now, how do you do this? How do you get rid of these body thetans that have attached themselves to you? That the evil god Xenu blew up their bodies, but their spirits came out, and now somehow they've attached to you. Well, let me read to you from holysmoke.org. On the internet, it says, many Scientologists who have left from the highest levels of Scientology have told us they have sat in a room at Scientology's Sandcastle building in Clearwater, Florida, for 5 to 7 hours a day for up to 10 years, holding 2 asparagus cans together, attached to a primitive e-meter, which is a primitive lie detector, talking all day to dead space aliens with the help of a man or woman called an auditor. And guess what, says this internet article? You'll never, ever finish talking to dead space aliens until you leave Scientology, if you ever do. I mean, there's so many of them. How many thousands have attached themselves to you? Well, I guess it would depend on how big is your bank account, probably. This article says, well, if you're in Scientology, we just thought you should know how you will be spending the rest of your life. Now, if you're a Mormon, you'll be spending the rest of your life working on your genealogy so you can find the names of all the dead ancestors throughout history all the way back to Adam and Eve, so you can conduct proxy baptisms for them, baptize their souls in purgatory or whatever planet they're on so that they can be saved. That's what you're going to be spending your life doing as a Mormon, baptizing the dead. But if you're a Scientologist, you're going to find time finding out the name of these evil space aliens who've attached themselves to you so you can get rid of them. And they hold cans together that are attached to a lie detector, and then the auditor asks you questions, and he could ask, I understand, some very interesting questions about your sex life, about everything about you, all the bad thoughts you may have ever had. And then you find out really it's not your fault. All of your problems are not your fault. It's these space aliens that have attached themselves to you. Now, isn't that a neat one? It's not your fault. And once we get rid of the bad thoughts that these space alien beings have put into your brain, you'll be clear. And after you get post-clear, then you can work up to OT8. And that's it, folks. Now, there's a lot more to Scientology we're going to talk about. Now, you may be laughing all the time I've been talking about Xenu and the 13.5 trillion space aliens. They're just their souls or spirits that came out when their frozen bodies were blasted down in the bottom of a volcano by hydrogen bombs that were dropped in. You may be finding all this very fanciful. Remember, L. Ron Hubbard started out as a pulp fiction writer. He graduated up to science fiction, Amazing Science Fiction, and other magazines. And he said, hey, there's big money in religion, I suppose. Or he thought there was. And he started his own religion. And he took his science fiction concepts and mixed it in with a little psychology. And maybe even a little bit of Christianity, at least the part about spirits. Bingo, he's got him a big world religion. 8 million people. Now, Ron Hubbard has gone on to be with his friend the devil, but there's 8 million people out there holding tin cans together over a primitive lie detector machine, confessing all of their thoughts, bad thoughts, and thinking that they're getting rid of spirits. and paying big money to do so. And they think they're getting helped. Many of them really do. Well, but not everybody is getting helped. There seems to be even some people who join Scientology that don't seem to get along or go along with the program. Maybe it's about the time they find out about Xenu, and they paid in all that money, and they figure that I've been rooked. I mean, I'm not sure, but I would think that'd make a few people a little angry. In any case, Scientology has special programs for them. Now, one website, watchman.org, and I really like these people, Craig Branch and good Christian people there at the Watchman Fellowship organization in Alabama. They have a website, and you may want to go to it, watchman.org. It'll tell you all about Scientology. Now, I give you their website. All of the Watchman people are not big fans of Texe Mars, and they don't believe in conspiracies, which is very strange. That's why they would probably oppose me. Oh, we don't believe conspiracies. Texe Mars, he's one of those conspiracy theorists. Yet here's Scientology. Talk about a conspiracy. It's a big one. Scientology's concentration camps. Now, one of the things you have to understand about Scientology is that Hubbard's successors do not allow criticism of their organization. I fully expect they'll come after me for doing these two programs. And boy, they can really come after you when they come after you. And they don't play games, although they do call it the big game when they come after you. And they'll slander you maliciously. They'll plant lies about you. They'll do anything to destroy you. One woman left Scientology and wrote some material exposing them, and they sued her 28 times. It was all malicious prosecution, and one court would throw it out, and they'd go find another court and sue her again. See, L. Ron Hubbard's policy was, we don't sue people to win. We sue them just to harass and intimidate them. You see, because when you get sued, there's a certain amount of irritant involved. You got to get a lawyer. You got to go to court. You got to spend countless hours digging up non-existent information and talking to lawyers and the court and all. You see, so it just takes all of your time. And so they, if they can bombard a person with lawsuits, they can get them to shut up. And since they have so many hundreds of millions of dollars they've made over the years, they got plenty of money for lawyers. I suspect they cut dozens of lawyers or more on staff. But back to the concentration camps. This article in Watchman.org says one of the most disturbing things about Scientology is its maintenance of concentration camp-like operations, which they call Rehabilitation Project Force, RPF. It's a horrific thing, and even the Los Angeles Times newspaper in an investigative report said that many former members have gave very similar accounts of how their lives were wrecked when they were targeted to become inmates, you might say, of these concentration camps. Now, we've run out of time today, friends. Next time we're going to talk about these concentration camps, about how many people have died, about L. Ron Hubbard, his connections with Satanism, and so much more, and how it relates to the Illuminati and the New World Order. And we're going to talk about all those things next week. You'll want to tune in again as we expose what has been called the world's most dangerous religion, Scientology. This is Texe Mars. You're listening to Power of Prophecy. I pray that you'll tune in each week during this same time and discover the power of prophecy.
And now it's time for Power of Prophecy with your host, former professor at the University of Texas at Austin, career United States Air Force officer, and best-selling author, Texe Marrs.
Hello, friends. This is Texe Marrs. Welcome to another edition of Power of Prophecy. Today is the second part of our series on Scientology, the science of Dianetics. Well, I'll tell you, some people laugh at this religion, but it's hard to laugh at a religion that has a claimed number of 8 million members, most of them in the United States of America, has spread throughout the world, has been seen as such a threat that many countries, Denmark, Germany, France, and others, have stripped it of tax-exempt status, saying that it's nothing but a business or racket, that it's not a religion. It's a group that has been claimed to have concentration camps and be responsible, at least the allegations are, for the deaths of a number of people who opposed it. They've been called the most dangerous and vicious religious group on the planet Earth. Their founder was involved in a church of Satan, and I could go on with Scientology. But I believe that it's important because even though you may say, well, I'd never become a Scientologist, I'm a Christian. Baloney with that. Okay, I understand that. But your next door neighbor may become one. The person across the street, your employer, may become one. And listen to me right now, friends. The Illuminati, the elite of this world behind the scenes, may very well have already chosen Scientology to become the new religion of the world. The New Age world religion. It embodies all of the practices, doctrines, and teachings of the occult world in a neat 21st century framework, as you're going to see as we talk about it a little bit. Now, there are a lot of people out there, believe it or not, that are into UFO, aliens, extraterrestrials. Look at your TV, everything from the X-File show to Twilight and so on. It goes, and all of the Star Wars. And they believe in these things. They believe in the Force, and on and on. These movies have been watched by billions of people, and they're very popular. They're actually believed. There's a Star Wars religious group even that's got 501c3 tax-exempt status. Scientology, in a sense, is an extraterrestrial belief-type religion. I want you to consider the basic belief that I told you that you don't learn until you get a little higher in the Scientology religion. You see, they take you step by step. And they say they have all of life's answers. They can make you into a happy, prosperous, powerful-minded person, free of negative thoughts. You can become so powerful that your thoughts can create all reality, bring riches to yourself. Power. You can become a god. I see an echo there of the devil's temptation in the Garden of Eden. Eat of the forbidden fruit, and ye shall be as gods. Did God surely say that you would die? No, you won't die. You'll be a god. Think of the basic belief, though. So many people that have rejected Christianity today are willing to believe anything as long as it's got some kind of a science fiction tinge to it. And here is the basic tale of Scientology that you learn, I think, at OT3. See, everybody is a thetan. You didn't know you were a thetan. You thought you were a human being. But you're a thetan. An operating thetan, if you're at a certain level, you can work to become a level 8, OT8, operating thetan, 8th level. When you're initiated, you might call it initiation, and you become an OT8, you become a god with the power to create reality. Then you have what they call as-is power. If you want a new car, you just think it into existence. Now, that's a great seductive thing to become a god on earth. And Scientology says they will make you into a god. But look at their basic tale. What you learn in Scientology, they don't tell you this off the street, but once you're into it and you paid a lot of money, that's right, paid a lot of money to Scientology, finally you get to the level where you're taught about Xenu, the great galactic alien ruler Zero. He ruled over 75 million years ago, and he was the ruler of a vast empire of 76 planets, of which one was called Texe, or Earth. Oh, yes, it had a different name back then. Now, Xenu says, I have an overpopulation problem. In fact, there are over 178 billion people on every planet, overpopulation on average, of my 76 planets in my sector of the galaxy that I control and rule over. And I've got to get rid of these people. So how do I do it? Well, he had them all arrested, the ones that were overpopulation, and seized 13.5 trillion were seized. They were taken by rocket ship. Well, first they were frozen. I forgot to tell you about that. They were frozen. Their bodies were frozen. Then they were taken by rocket ship and dropped in a volcano or volcanoes in the Canary and Hawaiian Islands on planet Earth. And then Xenu and his spaceships dropped atomic hydrogen bombs on them all and blew them apart. But their 13.5 million souls or spirits escaped that death spectacle. And now they're here on earth and they're inhabiting people with their evil engrams and other thoughts. And they're affecting our minds. And every person has on average 2,209 Thetan spirits that have been attached to your brain. And you got to get rid of them somehow, but first you got to learn about them. And Scientology says we will teach you about these Thetan spirits that have attached themselves with their evil and negative thoughts to you. And once you're clear of them, totally clear of these spirits, you'll be like a god or goddess. Only through Scientology and our scriptures and teachings, all, of course, formulated and written by their founder, L. Ron Hubbard, will you be able to become clear and truly have the life, the happy life that you want. Now, I can see how this is all going to come to pass. You see, they don't take on Christianity directly, it seems. They just offer everyone to be a God. They even say you can remain a Christian and be your own God. It's a little contradictory if you read the Bible, but how many people read the Bible? And when you have people like Rick Warren, who in his purpose-driven life says you just need to believe in God and have a purpose-driven life. But I'm not telling you you have to leave Hinduism, Buddhism, or any other religion. I don't get into that, says Warren. Then when you have Joel Osteen who says, well, I believe in Jesus, but I don't know about other religions. If you're a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Jew, a Muslim, I can show you how to reach your potential, your best life now by positive thoughts. I'm not going to talk about hell or condemnation. That's not my job. I don't know. It might be okay to be part of those other religions. I just don't know, says Mr. Osteen, pastor of the largest church in America today. And Billy Graham tells everybody, you know what? You can be a Buddhist, you can be a Hindu, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew. It doesn't matter. As long as you're sincere in those religions, you'll have Jesus in your heart, even if you don't know the name of Jesus, even if you've never read his Bible, and you're going to go to heaven, even if you're a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Hindu. Billy Graham and Dr. Robert Schuller agreed to that on their Hour of Power. Now, with these kind of teachings there, when you have a religion like Scientology comes up and says, you can say a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Christian, it doesn't matter. And then you can just accept our teachings as well. It's seductive. And after all, you've got to get rid of all these spirits. And if you've done evil things in this world, if you're not successful in life, if you're a loser, if you've got sickness, bad health, if you've got a lover that doesn't love you anymore, if there's any bad thing that's ever happened in your life, it's not your fault. It's those 2,000 and something Thetan spirits that have attached themselves to your body, to your brain, and you got to learn how to get rid of them, and then you'll be perfect. You'll know how to think clear analytically. It's a great seductive thought. And you can be a Christian and a Scientologist at the same time. Or can you? Or can you? You know, I've studied Scientology's own literature. On one hand, they say you can stay a Christian, but listen to this. Here's one of the things they teach. There are gods above all other gods and gods beyond the gods of the universes. But I thought God said, in the first of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt have no other God before me. But Scientology says there are gods above all other gods and gods beyond the gods of the universes. I wonder who's right, Scientology or the Bible. And then the Bible says, Jesus said, if you do not believe that I am He, God, you will die in your sins. Hell is a reality. The story of Lazarus, for example, and the rich man, and a horrible place. He was thirsting. It was hot down there. It was a terrible place. Hell. The book of Habakkuk in the Bible says that hell is ever being enlarged by the devil. Did you know that? The devil is one of the greatest builders of all time. Hell is, he needs more and more room. The more people are born and are hellish in their natures, the more people are being sent to hell on Judgment Day, and the devil knows it, and the Bible actually says he's enlarging it all the time. You want to know about the master builder? It's the devil. But wait, that's what the Bible says. But L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology, says this, quote, hell is a total myth, a vicious lie. I think he just called Jesus a vicious liar, didn't he? Now, here's one for you. Remember I talked about those Thetan spirits? Their bodies were frozen and blown apart in the volcanoes by atomic bombs, but the spirits escaped and then they attached themselves to people. But the Scientology says they can get rid of the spirits for you. Remember that doctrine of Scientology? One of the things they've been doing is implanting false religions in people's minds. These spirits. That's what Scientology teaches. They've been implanting false religions. Guess what one of the religions that's false? Scientology says. You got it. Christianity. Listen to this. Quote, the Christ legend was implanted 1,000,000 years ago. Christ is just a legend. He's not true. That was implanted by these evil Thetan spirits 1,000,000 years ago. Is Christianity and Scientology compatible? Of course not. But you see how this can seductively draw Christians who say they're Christians and are not. There's a lot of people out there like that. Tens of millions in America alone who go to church on Sunday and who are more than happy to say, I'm a Christian, but they live like the devil all week long. And then they hear about Scientology and they're told, you're a Christian? You can be a Scientologist too. And they say, yeah, I want my best life now. I want a purpose-driven life. And I can be a Scientologist. I can have it all. Tom Cruise does. He's a movie star. Look at him. He's a Scientologist. Kirstie Alley, she's got it all. She's got a series on HBO. They've all got it all. Chick Corea, the musician, he's got it all. Priscilla Presley, she's got all of her late husband Elvis's money, and she's got Scientology. Yeah, I want to be just like them. I, too, can be a Scientologist, they figure. And they may need to, because Scientology promises personal salvation. And what is personal salvation? Well, they've got a definition for it in Scientology. Let me read it to you. Personal salvation is freedom from the cycle of birth and death. That's reincarnation. They believe in reincarnation. In fact, they say these spirits, the souls in your soul does not die, it lives on. You can be born into a new body, but that body will also be attached by all these spirits. So for one time, you got to get rid of these spirits. Reincarnation. Freedom from the cycle of birth and death. The cycle? Sorry, my friends, but Hebrews 9 verse 27 says, it is appointed for a man once to die. How many times? Once to die. It is appointed. Friends, the Bible says you have a destiny. Texe Mars has a destiny. That destiny is we can live one time on earth. One time. Once. It is appointed for a man once to die. Afterward, the judgment. Did you get that? You live one time, and after that life, you will be judged by God. You say, oh, how can I escape that? How can I escape this cycle of birth and death? There is no cycle. There's only once. It's monophasal, as the doctors would call a certain kind of sickness that gets you. You born once, you die once, the judgment comes and you're sent to one place. But if you're of God, you're of that one body, one baptism, one faith, one salvation, one destiny. But there is another destiny. And Scientology, believe me, will take you there. Now, let's look a little bit more about Scientology's beliefs. I was reading an article and many books. By the way, I want to mention several books to you before we get in too far into this. You might want to get some of these books and read them. There was a book written by L. Ron Hubbard's own son, L. Ron Hubbard Jr. His own son wrote a book, and it's entitled L. Ron Hubbard, Messiah or Madman. I read that book, quite interesting. Hey, by the way, every one of these books, Scientology has done its best to stop lawsuits, harassment, intimidation. And I'm sure they must have stopped many books, but these somehow got published. L. Ron Hubbard Jr., his book, L. Ron Hubbard, Messiah or Madman. And I assure you, I believe that he probably thought his father was in the latter category. Here was a really good one. A Piece of Blue Sky. Scientology, Dianetics, and L. Ron Hubbard Exposed by John Attack, A-T-A-C-K. Good name. There's The Hidden Side of Scientology, a book by Omar Garrison. There's, and this really is a great book, The Barefaced Messiah by Russell Miller. All of those are very good books that I highly recommend to you, and I'm sure there are others as well. There's a book by Martin Gardner. He's a guy that doesn't believe in any religion, but he did expose Scientology in his book, The New Age, Notes of a Fringe Watcher. Let me read to you what he said about L. Ron Hubbard. This is Gardner speaking now in his book. He says, Hubbard was a deeply disturbed man, a pathological liar who steadily deteriorated from a charming rogue into a paranoid egomaniac, unable to distinguish between fact and his own fantastic fiction. In the book Barefaced Messiah, the true story of L. Ron Hubbard, you really read it. He asks the question, what do screaming tomatoes, from like in your garden, tomatoes, the red vegetable? What do screaming tomatoes and blasphemous rituals of Satanists have in common? Well, L. Ron Hubbard. Screaming tomatoes? You'll find this sort of funny and interesting and quite tragic, too. By the way, before we talk about the screaming tomatoes, that's right, L. Ron Hubbard believed that tomatoes scream when you cut into them, among a number of his crazy beliefs. But listen, in 1965, in Australia, there was a big controversy over whether Scientology was a religion or not. and the claims of L. Ron Hubbard. An Australian board of inquiry was held, and they issued a report, an official report. They call Hubbard in the report a paranoid schizophrenic with delusions of grandeur, a compulsion to invent words. They said, quote, Scientology is evil. Wow. Government commissions usually don't talk in those blunt terms, but they must have really been on to something here. Scientology is evil. Its adherents sadly deluded and often mentally ill. Scientology is a delusional belief system. Its founder, with a merest smattering of knowledge of the various sciences, has built upon the scintilla of his learning a crazy and dangerous edifice. Wow. It's also been proven that Hubbard became involved with Jack Parsons, the California rocket scientist who practiced black magic. And I could tell you some things about Parsons, but they make me sick. I'm not going to tell you about them. But let me just say that he practiced black magic. He was priest of a church of Satan. And they named the Jet Propulsion Laboratories in California. The government did after him. JPL, Jack Parsons. There's a plaque, in fact, a bronze plaque. Drive up and park in the parking lot and go, and right before you go in the door of the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, this huge government complex of science, you will see a bronze plaque recognizing the contributions of Jack Parsons. He invented the solid rocket fuels, without which our space program and the intercontinental ballistic missile would be impossible. He was a genius, and he was a follower of Satan. And L. Ron Hubbard was so entranced with Parsons, he lived in his home for a while and studied under him. But I guess he decided the money was there. He could go out and start his own religion. Why did he have to become just one of the followers of Satan when he could become head of his own religion? Scientology. And so it began. By the way, Parsons himself was a disciple of another Satanist, Aleister Crowley from Great Britain, who called himself the wickedest man on earth and even said, I am the beast, 666. Now, let's talk a little bit about the screaming tomatoes. You see, this is an amazing discovery by E. Ron Hubbard. I don't know why it's not at Texas A&M University and the other agricultural schools. It should be. The research L. Ron Hubbard did, his work with tomatoes. It seems that with the use of the E-meter, which is sort of a crude lie detector device, he was able to do research on the emotions of tomatoes. You see, he had made so much money in Scientology, he bought an estate. It was the estate of the Maharaja of Jaipur in Sussex, England. There, Hubbard conducted plant research. He said he was going to reform the world's food supply. Because, you see, he had a mind past clear. He was a God man. He was operating Thetan level 8, and he knew everything, and he could create things. But he had to do research on tomatoes. And he became convinced that tomatoes had emotion and that they screamed when they were sliced. So, friends, next time you get a knife and you begin cutting on that tomato, listen up, and you can hear it. No, please. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm telling you what L. Ron Hubbard believed. Of course, I think it's sort of silly. And I'm not going to stop eating tomatoes anytime soon, because I suppose cucumbers also cry out, and I like pickles. And, well, you could go on and on. There's the squash and there's the okra, and all of them must cry out when you cut into them. They all have emotions. L. Ron Hubbard said so. Now, Gardner, in his book, said, quote, it would be hard to invent a more infantile mythology than this religion. It would be hard to invent a more infantile mythology. So Hubbard was the best. But remember, Scientology began when many people were fascinated at an article basically about Xenu, the intergalactic alien dictator of 76 planets, and all these things. L. Ron Hubbard, who at the time had no money and no prospects, he was a college dropout, but he did an article, I believe it was for Amazing Science Fiction magazine. And people sort of dug that a little bit. And he said, hey, people like that. I think I can start my own religion. So in the 1953-50 era, 50 years ago, he started his religion. And he based it on these science fiction things that he had. Ideas. And you know what? People ate it up because it told them you could become a god. And UFOs were just getting into the press, and people began to read about them and become fascinated. And then we have movies, of course, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Star Wars. And these all seem to relate somehow to Scientology. I mean, John Travolta, the movie star who's a Scientologist, came out and did a movie. I didn't see it. I didn't waste my time on it, but it was all about, Star Wars type thing, aliens coming to Earth, planting seeds, became men or what. I don't know. It's just garbage. But L. Ron Hubbard wrote science fiction books. In fact, what was very eerie about it was he went into hiding in his last years. Sort of like Howard Hughes. He thought the government was out to get him. And it was, evidently. In fact, his wife was convicted of illegal activities, church activities, and a number of church officials were for their vicious church activities and breaking into government buildings and stealing documents. And then they had planted reporters in major newspapers. And, hey, these people are powerful with all their money, but they were caught. But L. Ron Hubbard was in hiding. And after he died, books by L. Ron Hubbard, science fiction books, continued to be published. They said, well, these books were written by him before he died, and now they're like posthumous. But many people thought they just got hacked science fiction writers, stuck L. Ron Hubbard's name on it, and continued to publish. I don't know the truth of that, but it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Now, last week I mentioned to you that we would talk about Scientology's concentration camps. That's right. They have what some claim to be concentration camps. Here we get into the crossbreeding, don't we? The Illuminati's plan for concentration camps, as I've exposed in Gulag USA, and what Scientology is doing. Now, I'm not saying there's a direct link at all. I'm not saying that these are concentration camps. I'm just saying that there are certain allegations, and we need to look into these allegations and see what it's all about. Would Scientology punish followers who refuse to go along with their beliefs? Who backslid and even decided they would renounce Scientology? I believe that is exactly the case, and there's a lot of documentation evidently out there about that. In his book, L. Ron Hubbard, Madman or Messiah, ? His own son, L. Ron Hubbard, gave an eyewitness account of a young woman Scientology recruit who was, let's just say, disciplined by the cult after she supposedly violated one of the cult's rules. You see, she was on a ship. They actually have some ships that are owned by Scientology. They call it their Sea Organization, or Sea Org. What happened to this young woman on this ship was unbelievable. We're going to tell you what happened to her when we return. We got much more for you as we expose what has been called the world's most dangerous religion, the religion of the New Age called Scientology. This is Texe Mars. I'll be right back after this brief message. Hello, friends. We're back again. And, New Age Cults and Religions is a book that you must have. And I hope you'll buy an extra copy for your pastor or for a friend, because it exposes 100 of the top New Age cults and religions. So many millions of people have been entrapped in these groups, such as Scientology. Yes, we have a section on Scientology, sometimes called Dianetics, in this book. But listen to some of the other groups that we expose. There is A Course in Miracles. Doesn't that sound wonderful? A Course in Miracles. But, of course, this group is a New Age religion that has its own Bible, which they say Jesus wrote. Jesus wrote. There's the Lucis Trust, formerly known, actually officially formerly known, and incorporated in the 20s as Lucifer Publishing. There's LifeSpring. There's the Mayan Order. There's the Montessori schools. Oh, could they be bad? While Willie Nelson's kids went to Montessori, how could they be bad? Well, they don't smoke pot there, I don't think, like Willie did, but there's some other aspects you better know about Montessori. There's the Dalai Lama. There's the witchcraft Druid sect. The Druids? There's the Baha'i, a religion that even Israel has allowed to build a temple today in the nation of Israel. How did they get that done? There's Astara, a group that worships the great goddess, the star goddess. There's the Edgar Cayce group. They believe that Edgar Cayce could tell the future. Eckankar. Would you like to do a little bit of astral traveling? It's cheap. You don't have to pay a travel agent. Just have your soul travel even in outer space. There's the Fellowship of Isis, the Findhorn Foundation, the Forum, Freemasonry, Hare Krishna. Well, you can find out what the Beatles believed, couldn't you? By reading this book. Hinduism, Buddhism. There's the Monroe Institute, one of the satanic groups, Order of the Golden Dawn. There's the Mormons. They say they have 12 to 15 million members. Mormons. Why do I classify it a New Age cult group? You'll have to read this book to find the answer. So much more here. The Rosicrucians, Ramtha, the Jehovah's Witnesses. On and on we expose the New Age false religions and cults. Now, this book is over 350 pages long, but we're going to send it to you for your gift that is non-tax exempt now. We don't give tax breaks, but we give you something worth having and studying, and it is this book, New Age Cults and Religions. For $15, add $2 shipping and handling, a total of $17 postpaid. Ask for the book, New Age Cults and Religions, and we'll get it winging right to you. Now, here's how to get the book. Just phone us toll-free, 1-800-234-9673, 1-800-234-9673. You can write to us. Write me a little note and say, Dear Texe, send me that book, New Age Cults and Religions, and we'll get it to you. New Age Cults and Religions. Our address, Power of Prophecy, 1708 Patterson Road, Austin, Texas, 78733. Let me go over that a little bit slowly there for you. If you're like me, you're just getting out your pen. They've already finished the address, and you're angry. That's what happens to me when I try to take down an address. Never can seem to get it down. Well, let's just go a little slower. Let's be kind to people. And if you're like me, you're probably not as slow as I am, but I'll help you out anyway. Power of Prophecy, 1708 Patterson, Patterson Road, Austin, Texas, or just TX, 78733. If you're overseas, of course, you need to add USA. Now, if you're overseas and you want to call us and order this book, you can do so. We ask just for a little bit extra for shipping and such, and because of the exchange rate. But you can certainly do so. And our phone number, not toll-free, but our regular phone number is area code 512-263-9780. As always, we appreciate your help in the ministry. And any profit that we get on this book, we put back into the ministry here. And we're going to keep going until Jesus returns again. That's what we're going to do. Why? Because we're called to do it, and we're going to complete the job for the Lord Jesus Christ. Now let's return to our regular program. We're talking about New Age cults and religions, in fact, and specifically Scientology. Scientology was founded 1954, 1955 depending on which source you read, by L. Ron Hubbard, a failed college dropout. But, of course, if you read the biography of L. Ron Hubbard put out by Scientology, he was a miracle man. Man, he was an engineer. He was this or that. A lot of spin you'll find out in the life of L. Ron Hubbard. Quite mythical. Now, let me tell you what Time magazine said about Scientology. And on May 6, 1991, there was a huge cover story. And boy, was the Church of Scientology angry. I told you they will sue just about anybody they can that comes against them. And they were angry at Time magazine. Time magazine called Scientology the cult of greed. The cult of greed. Let me read to you the exact quote from Time magazine. Quote, "The Church of Scientology, started by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard to clear people of unhappiness, portrays itself as a religion. In reality, the church is a hugely profitable global racket that survives by intimidating members and cities in mafia-like manner. Scientology is quite likely the most ruthless, the most classically terroristic, the most litigious, and the most lucrative cult the country has ever seen. The most ruthless, the most terroristic, mafia-like, a global racket." Wow. These are words, aren't they? Powerful words. Watchman, the Watchman Fellowship, a group that I respect in Alabama that has studied this group. By the way, you can find out what they have to say about them on watchman.org website. They say Scientology makes duplicitous claims of compatibility with Christianity. Duplicitous, of course, means lying claims. Contrasting its own bizarre and secret teachings with the truth of Christianity, as well as demonstrating its contempt for Christ. There are elaborate myths, they say, spun around Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard. Remember, ex-members have said that they consider him the Messiah. And only his scriptures do they believe are to be followed by Scientologists. You know, the Bible says something, dear friends, Matthew 24, verses 4 and 5. It says, "Take heed," this is Jesus' words, in fact, "take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." I am Christ, and shall deceive many. I don't know that L. Ron Hubbard ever actually said the words, "I am Christ," but in what he did say about his, amazing discoveries of a new religion, you can see that it's opposed to Christianity. Yet he's been able to seduce millions of people into believing in his delusion of grandeur. Now, he's even a writer of sacred scriptures, as I said. The official Scientology spokesperson, Lisa Goodman, let me read what she said. This is quoted in the Los Angeles Times, June 24th, 1990, page A. She said, "Hubbard's writings and lectures on the human spirit comprise the scripture of the Scientology religion. Hubbard," she said, "is the sole source of the scriptures." And, quote, "he has no successor." He wrote the scriptures. He's the sole source. Well, that tells you they must think he's a god. But you can, of course, become your own god. Now, they've been able to convince millions all around the world that he is a Messiah, evidently. But we need to look really at his life. By the way, it was astounding. I said it was amazing science fiction last week, but it was astounding science fiction. In 1950, he first published an article which he later expanded into Dianetics. By the way, Dianetics itself, some people say, what does that mean? And I pondered it. Of course, Scientology has its own definition. They have a lot of definitions that I wouldn't agree with. But remember, the Bible talks about the followers of Diana, goddess of the Ephesians. Diana. The Apostle Paul came into contact with the followers who worshiped the goddess Diana. They were merchants in the city of Ephesus who were making a lot of money from the sale of souvenirs and paraphernalia. They'd make little silver medallions and things with Diana's picture. You know, Diana is still popular today. The witches even worship her as their goddess. The goddess Diana, the witchcraft goddess. She was worshipped actually in many names throughout the known world. Paul said of her, she was the goddess of the Ephesians, whom all the world worshipeth. You know, a lot of Christians don't know that at one time, the whole world worshiped a goddess, Diana of the Ephesians. But she was known to the Greeks as Aphrodite. She was known to the Romans as Venus and Cybele. She was known as Sarah. She was known as Isis to the Egyptians. Astara to the Babylonians. Yes, friends, she was the one, the goddess whom all the world worships, Paul said. And now we have her science, Dianetics, by Hubbard. Remember I said that Hubbard was a part in one way or another of this Church of Satan run by Jack Parsons, affiliated with Aleister Crowley, the British Satanist. A lot of people think that Satanists just worship a horned god, the devil or Lucifer. Not so. Not so. There is a goddess always worshipped by Satanists. Did you hear what I just said? There is always a goddess. Some years ago, I was watching a terrible movie. I'll never watch it again. One time was enough. I promise you, you don't want to see this movie. Rosemary's Baby. Please don't check it out. Don't go get the movie. But one scene in the movie, this horrible movie, showed the devil arriving for this horrible ritual. He knocked on the door 3 times. And the members of the satanic sect opened the door. And when they did, who entered but an old woman? And then right behind her was Satan himself. The woman comes first, the goddess. Remember, Revelation 17 says, Mystery Babylon, mother of harlots. She rides the beast. Get it? She rides the beast. There's a woman involved here. The goddess. I believe, it's my opinion, and Scientologists can deny it all they want, but I believe Crowley and Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, were worshipers of the great goddess Diana, mother of harlots. Now, in an expose book that I said before was co-authored by his own son, L. Ron Hubbard Jr. exposed his own dad, said he was a fake, he was a liar, he was a, well, they called him a madman. Let me tell you about one of the cases, a young woman. This is evidently an eyewitness account of what happened to a young woman in the bowels of a ship. The Scientologists own ships, and once you're out on their ship, part of their sea organization, L. Ron Hubbard loved to be out on a ship. He had been a Navy officer of a lower grade. In fact, he was relieved of his command for being such a crackpot. And his naval records actually show that he was relieved of his command. And in his naval records, it is told, watch this man very carefully. He needs to be supervised. He was a failure in the U.S. Navy. Now, if you read the Scientology biography of him, he was some kind of a Navy hero that sunk Japanese submarines, or I don't know, Korean. I don't even remember, but he did heroic acts. But the official U.S. Navy records, according to these reports, say not so. But again, as I told you, there's a lot of liars in Scientology. And L. Ron Hubbard was chief in that liar category. But think about it, becoming part of this great cult Scientology and then volunteering to go out onto the oceans and you're all alone with other Scientologists who are manning the ships. Maybe even the Commodore himself, because L. Ron Hubbard liked to call himself the Commodore. The Commodore. Of course, he's down in hell now, and you know there's no water down there. He has no Navy, no Sea Org in hell, my dear friends. Now, let me read you exactly from this book what it says here. According to the book, the young woman who had violated one of the cult's rules on ship there, she was taken to the bowels of the ship. The name of the ship, Apollo. Apollo, of course, is the name of the Greek sun god. And, of course, he had the goddess with him. But Apollo was owned by Hubbard Scientology. She was forced to undergo the following ritual to atone for her indiscretion. She had to be redeemed for her little rule violation. Now, here's an eyewitness report of what happened there. Quote, the ceremonies were done below deck. There, a large idol of Kali. Now, let's stop right there. There was a large idol erected in the bowels of the ship named Apollo. And the name of the idol, the statue, was Kali. Now, Kali just happens to be the mother goddess of India. She's the cobra serpent goddess. She was also known as the goddess of death or destruction. Her mouth was pictured as a bloody mess because she ate her victims in a cannibalistic act after cutting off their limbs and their head with her swords. The goddess Kali. Followers of the goddess Kali were called thuggies and assassins. And from that we get the English word today, thugs. Thugs. There a large idol of Kali had been erected. It looked very solid and real and was painted gold. The only light down in the bowels of the ship was the flickering of a few candles. She was brought forward and led to Kali. Then, following the orders relayed from L. Ron Hubbard, she bowed down and chanted to the idol, admitting her evil intentions. And she dipped her hands in blood, or a solution, which was a very good imitation, and smeared it onto the idol, after which chicken bones were strung around her neck. She came out of there in shock and was overcome with grief for some 48 hours. That's what happened to a young woman in Scientology. But worse could happen to you. Lisa McPherson, her family say, went into Scientology and wanted to leave, but ended up dead. And there are many cases of these things happening. Let's talk about Scientology's concentration camps. I wonder if they could not be a pattern for the Antichrist Gulag USA that is already being constructed around the United States. Let me read to you from the Watchman.org that article entitled Scientology's Concentration Camps. They give the parallels of Scientology to Nazism, but I believe it's more like communism and what happened in Soviet Russia with its gulags. They say one of the most disturbing parallels is Scientology's own maintenance of a concentration camp-like program, which they call Rehabilitation Project Force, or RPF. In describing this horrific aspect, the monumental Los Angeles Times investigative report on Scientology related that many former members gave very similar accounts of how their lives were wrecked by Scientology. In interviews and public records, former staffers have said they were alienated from society, stripped of familiar beliefs, punished for aberrant behavior, rewarded for conformity, and that they had been worked beyond exhaustion to meet ever-escalating productivity quotas. If a member's productivity began to decline, or especially if they are suspected of doing anything that would undermine Scientology, they could be subjected or punished in RPF. RPF. RPFers, as they are called, are separated from their family and friends for days, weeks, months, or even longer. They cannot speak unless spoken to. They run wherever they go, and they wear armbands to denote their lowly condition. They're expected to do very menial jobs and hard labor or whatever the management deems necessary for their redemption. Respected sociologist Stephen Kent, professor at the University of Alberta, recently presented a paper on RPF of Scientology at the Academic Society for the Scientific Study of Religion. In it, Dr. Kent detailed and documented Scientology's RPF program. He used, by the way, Scientology's own documents to do so. Here's what this professor noted. He said, quote, "In considerable detail, the RPF documents of Scientology lay out the framework of forcible confinement, physical and social maltreatment, intensive reindoctrination, and forced confessions. There is even a kind of second-level RPF for people already in RPF thought to be deserving still greater punishment or rehabilitation. There are several testimonials recorded of people being chained or locked in a wire cage in one of the RPF locations in Clearwater's Fort Harrison Hotel headquarters of Scientology. For others, a stay at the Fort Harrison headquarters has resulted in something far worse than physical and mental abuse. There's the tragic death of Lisa McPherson that has been investigated. CBS's Public Eye with Brian Gumbel had a program discussing it, the matter of Lisa McPherson, on January the 7th, 1998. Meanwhile, Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist Lucy Morgan wrote an extensive story of how, quote, 7 other Scientologists in apparently sound health died suddenly after coming to Clearwater, Florida for Scientology training and counseling. 7 Scientologists, apparently in sound health, died. One man was found dead in a bathtub with water so hot that it had burned his skin off. Well, Scientology's concentration camps. You know, Reader's Digest did an article about Scientology, and senior editor Eugene Methvin, who, by the way, experienced what he said was serious harassment by Scientology because of this article he had written. He says, quote, this is in Reader's Digest, Scientology is far more than mere religion. It is a multinational racket masquerading as a religion. By the way, this is Reader's Digest, September 1981, entitled Scientology, The Sickness Spreads. Wow. By the way, Scientology itself says that it is not a turn-the-other-cheek religion. They have been known to slander, hire private detectives to harass and intimidate, do dirty tricks against opponents, and, of course, the old tactic of lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. I mentioned Paulette Cooper, who left Scientology, and they especially hate people who know things, who were in Scientology and left. Paulette Cooper left, and then she exposed them. They sued her 28 times. When one court threw it out as garbage, I suppose, they just went and sued her in another court. They have lawyers to do this. Perhaps Texe Mars will be sued for the same thing. You know, Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes talked about Scientology. And her guest was Cynthia Kisser of the former group, Cult Awareness Network. They're out of business now. But Kisser was asked this statement. She says, you have said before, this is Leslie Stahl now, asking this of this Cult Awareness Network group, the leader, Executive Director Cynthia Kisser. She said, you have stated that Scientology, this is Stahl now, you have stated that Scientology is quite likely the most ruthless, the most classically terrorist, the most litigious, and the most lucrative cult the country has ever seen. Do you still stand by your statement? Miss Kisser's response, oh, more than ever. Everything they've done since just proves that quote. They're still the same. There's the case of a man named Larry Wollersheim. He was a Scientologist and he left the group. And what did they do? They sued him. Did you know that in 1986, Mr. Wollersheim turned around and sued them and he won a $30 million jury verdict in compensatory and punitive damages against the Church of Scientology. Now, it was later reduced to $2.5 million. Nevertheless, the courts found that Scientology was guilty of intentional and negligent infliction of severe emotional harm. They said that these acts against Mr. Wollersheim by the Church of Scientology exceeds the bounds usually tolerated by a decent society, that they constituted outrageous conduct with a reckless disregard. Wow. They said that the Church of Scientology had a policy called fair game. Anybody that exposes Scientology is called fair game. And they went forth to destroy Wollersheim's business. Not only that, they physically restrained Wollersheim from leaving the church's ship. Seems to be very much like the account of Lisa McPherson, whose struggle ended, however, in death. Now, Scientology says we don't have the fair game policy anymore. But some people report that they indeed do have the same policies. After all, they were formulated by L. Ron Hubbard. And did not the spokesperson say, in terms of the scriptures of Scientology, that they can never be changed? So they have this attack and destroy campaign against all their opponents. And yet they have the gall to say Scientology is compatible with Christianity. Are they joking or what? Well, of course, they're just simply lying. But I'm afraid, friends, they're going to bring many people into this false religion. Why? Because Christianity is becoming a lukewarm false religion itself. Now, thank God the Bible says there are going to be a few that will retain the ancient landmarks of the Christian faith. Jesus said rhetorically, I know, but he said, when the Son of Man returns, will he find faith on planet Earth? Friends, the Scientology Church may well in future years join up with Roman Catholicism, with all of these lukewarm mainline denominations like the Methodists and the Lutherans and the Episcopals. They'll join up with the other New Age groups like the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses. And they'll join up with the government with its concentration camps that they're building right now. And all of it will become one huge conglomerate. And their target will be you and me, the true church of Jesus Christ. But remember, Jesus said, the gates of hell will not prevail against his people. You've been listening to Power of Prophecy. I pray you'll tune in each week during this same time. I'm Texe Mars. Till next time, may God richly bless you.